Corporations exist everywhere. The phones we use, the sinks we wash our hands in, and the places where we get our coffee from are all the products or services of corporations. In the most intriguing way, the actions of corporations dictate the way people live their everyday lives. Corporations thrive on something too: the leadership and business skill of their chief executive officers. CEOs are the decision-making machines that run corporations. I focus my interest and research on the career of a chief executive officer. An interest in the corporate world not only reverberates in me, but throughout my entire family as well. My father, currently as the senior sales executive at HP, has been working in the corporate world for almost 15 years. My mother, also a veteran of the corporate world, is currently a director of billing at Nationwide Insurance. I've always had a knack for being able to communicate well, and I enjoy the politics of almost any interaction within a group of people. CEOs are the epitome of both these interests of mine. The ability to communicate well, to lead a corporation to success, is a necessity for a CEO. The ability to understand and play the game of politics in life is also another vital qualification for anyone aspiring to be in this career. I've grown up in a household dominated by the big business of corporations, and now, at my age, I feel the baton is being passed to me. Even my grandfather, though not a man of corporate, runs one of the most successful architectural consultancy firms in southern India. Once again, proof that my entire family has been baptized in the culture and ethics of the business world. I feel I embody both aforementioned traits, and combined with my business-oriented lineage, I think this is a career that I would seriously consider. At this moment, you're probably asking yourself, okay, but why should I care? How do corporations impact my life at all? Well, the simple answer to that question is, they do. According to Alexander Stylianides, the very presence of a corporation can influence the logistics of the place in which it resides. Corporations improve employment prospects, invest billions in philanthropic CSR schemes such as educational pensions, and lead to a positive influx on the dividends of shareholders. The CEOs of corporations make all the decisions that lead to these positive outcomes, and therefore their importance is incredibly high in society, and this is what I want you to know at the end of all of this. CEOs are the main decision makers in a corporation. They drive the corporation to success by managing smaller, specialized teams of individuals to do their individual duties. They must consider the interests of everyone in their company, and they take full responsibility for the corporation's success or failure. They usually head the marketing and strategy part of a corporation and are the main force for the company's PR. They take on many responsibilities in the corporation they work in, and though this job title is extremely coveted, the complexity and risk involved with it make it a very difficult career to be successful in. Both of my parents have helped me throughout my research by describing the reality behind the corporate world and by explaining every job position in acute detail for me, including that of the CEO. One of my mother's other corporate friends, Mr. Unnikrishnan Sukumaran, happens to be the global head of the customer experience practice at Wipro Limited. After interviewing him, I learned a lot more about the enduring corporate controversy of tax avoidance. According to Mr. Sukumaran, corporate tax avoidance is defined as reducing or negating tax liability in legally permissible ways. The main controversy behind corporate tax avoidance is whether it is efficient and legal to use, or whether it is illegal and counterintuitive and therefore not permitted to be used. I feel that the practice of corporate tax avoidance is fully justified given the social benefits and economic stability it creates. CEOs are affected by this controversy because if their corporation practices tax avoidance and the public calls them out for it, they'll have to take full responsibility for their failure, possibly ruining their career. Corporations use methods such as going Dutch with the royalties, the moving of management fees to Switzerland, and tax havens to avoid the payment of tax. The utilization of tax havens is the most well-known and widely used form of corporate tax avoidance. According to Megan Hess, the Associate Professor of Accounting, and Raquel Alexander, the Senior Term Associate Professor of Accounting at the Washington and Lee Universities, tax haven is a term used to describe countries like Bermuda and Mauritius that charge little to no taxes on corporations. Tax avoidance has also led to an increase in the provision of public goods in haven countries. positive increases in employment prospects, CSR schemes, and the dividends of shareholders are all the indirect benefits of corporate tax avoidance by way of tax havens. Critics of this practice decry it as unlawful and counterproductive, generally referring to it as tax aggressiveness rather than avoidance. Richard Harvey, the distinguished professor of practice at the Villanova University Graduate Tax Program, states that tax aggressiveness is usually based upon the degree of tax risk that a corporation believes it is taking. The two main components of tax risk are technical risk and reputational risk. Technical tax risk is generally comprised of entirely fiscal objects, such as penalties, whilst reputational tax risk is comprised of negative articles in the press and government hearings. However, corporate tax avoidance, as earlier defined, follows legally permissible ways and is thereby not subject to technical tax risk such as penalties. Once corporations undertake legally dubious ways to avoid tax, then they will have high technical tax risk and can be labeled as tax aggressiveness, but it can no longer be considered tax avoidance by definition. With this research, Professor Harvey has also found that corporations are, with one exception, generally less aggressive today than they were back in the 1990s and 2000s. In my interview with Mr. Sukumaran, I have learned a lot about the side that supports corporate tax avoidance. My interest in the career of a CEO has increased after my personal research into this controversy. By now, I have explained to you the role of a CEO in a corporation, their impact on society, and one of the controversies that affects them. However, the most important thing I want you all to do is to remember the importance of corporations in your daily lives. As I said before, in the most intriguing way, the actions of corporations, courtesy of their CEOs, dictate the way people live their everyday lives. They certainly dictate mine. And remember, business is life. Thank you.